So what I'm doing here is loading 45 ACP using my old Dillon Model 450 progressive press. And I'm just kind of recording my routine. So basically, once the press is loaded progressively, this is how I would go through the routine. First thing I do before I spin it is look and confirm that I have actually dropped powder. In this case right here, it says I'm going to call this station number 1. That's where you put the brass in. Station 2 is where you drop the powder. Station 3 is where you're going to seat the bullet. Station 4 doesn't do anything because this is a two die set. If it were a 3 die, you would have your you'd put your seating over here. You could put your seating there anyway if you wanted to, but you'd need the expanding bell, and I don't have that here. The expanding bell actually happens at the same place that the powder is dropped. The bell acts as a funnel for the powder, as well as the bell to size the ID of the case, and it also bells it just slightly, flares it slightly, so that the bullet can be entered, so that the bullet can be seated without shaving any lead. So here's what I'm going to do. As I said, I've looked to confirm that there's powder here. Missing a powder drop is like the one drawback of this system. Is if you forget to spin the powder measure, or for whatever reason it doesn't get filled, you'll have a squib load. That's a bad deal. So I like to always look to confirm that I have powder. Now I'm going to go ahead and spin it. I've already primed this one. We'll cover that in a moment. I'm going to spin it for the next operation. I can take this round out. I'm going to double check that there's a primer and that I like the looks of the round in general. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to seat a bullet into the belled mouth of the case. I'm going to put a new, or not new, but the next brass in there. By the way, this brass has all been cleaned, sorted, and trimmed to a consistent length. So that's the pre-preparation has been done to the brass. So I'm going to put that empty case in there, and we will run the press all the way up. Now it has seated that bullet over there. The first thing I do once the ram is in the up position is I drop that powder, and I like to be very consistent. I will tap the powder measure once to fill the chamber, and then when I dump it, I'd like to tap it just lightly, but if there are any flakes from a little bit of static cling, I like to make sure those flakes have dropped down. Now then the next thing is you put a primer in position, and this is a primer indexing system. It holds about 100 primers. So I like to do about 100 rounds at a time. You probably can't see it, but there's a primer sitting there now. The next thing we will do is pull this down and force it down, and that seats the primer. And I always pull that brass out and make sure that it's deep enough. Once in a while you have to go a little bit deeper with it. And at that point you can see the loaded round is over here. Because it seated the bullet. There's powder in there, and now I'm going to spin it. And it indexes, so it locks in position pretty well. That round is ready to come out. Take one final look at it. Drop it over there with those. Put my next brass in. Put my next bullet in for seating. These are, I happen to be shooting You got to get that lead sitting fairly coaxial with the case. Otherwise, it is possible for it to catch on the edge of the seating die and knock the lead over to the side, and then you've pretty much ruined that case if that happens. I'm going to look in here to make sure that there is well, there's not powder yet. So I'm talking here and I've got myself out of sequence. That one's ready to be decapped. So when we run this up, all the way up, and we're going to load our powder, pre-position a primer, and then seat the primer home. Check the primer, check to make sure that there's powder, and then index the press. And that load, take a quick look at it, looks good. We're going to seat a bullet for the next, we're going to position a bullet for the next seating. And put an empty brass in. And we'll run her home. Now this is going to decap the old primer out of these, because these are all previously fired cases, so it's going to push the primer out. There's a decapping pin in there. It goes into this little trap door. It's going to sit there. You probably won't be able to see it, but it's going to push it out. Load our powder, pre-position our primer. Now when I drop this down, it's going to automatically open this little chute, and the previously spent primer is going to drop into there, just like that. We'll take a look. Oop, that one is not seated flush. Not a good job on that one. So give it a little harder push downward on the ram, and now it looks good. I'm going to look over here. There's powder present for the next case, and I'm going to spin it again. Take a final look at this round before it goes in the completed cup. Drop our next brass in place. Run it all the way down. Load our powder. Pre-position our primer. Lower the ram. Forcefully seat that primer. Pull it out. Give it a feel. Make sure it's not high. Make sure we've got powder over here. Now I screwed up there. I forgot to put a bullet over here. So I did not get a bullet seating on that last one. So I can still do that. That case is probably a little bit short because it doesn't want to accept the bullet. Now you can pull a case out by removing these little pins, and I'm going to pull that one because I don't like the way the bullet is seating. If I had to guess, I would say that there wasn't quite that case was trimmed a little bit too short and it didn't get flared. So I'm just going to set it aside. I'm not going to mess with that right now. Okay, so I've got a primer here, got powder there. Go and spin it around. Take a look at our finished case, our finished loaded round. Seat the bullet for the next round. Load our empty case. Powder. Primer. seated home. Take a quick feel. Spin it around. You can see that that round was missing because I pulled it out. So we're going to pre-position our bullet. Put in the new brass. Powder. Primer. Seat the primer. Check it. And index. I got powder over here. It's important to get a routine started so that you do the same thing every time. You don't want to miss steps. If you miss a step, you don't get a primer seated or you don't get powder in it. It's going to upset your the flow of your work. If you get a routine down, the flow of the work goes pretty quickly. That's it.